Hello and welcome. I'm Kristen Bomas, your host, and joining me today is Holly Green, the owner of AcuSports Therapy, and she does sports acupuncture as well as functional medicine, and I can personally tell you there's nobody better. So please, let's welcome Holly. Holly?
Kristen.
How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me what your thoughts are today.
Well, I had been pondering this on and off lately a lot.
Okay.
In life we often have intuition about different things.
Mm-hmm.
We might think, oh, this could happen. I wonder if I should do this or that, So it's like we feel like it's intuitive, but what if it's not? What if it's like a premonition, like something that's going to happen? How do you differentiate, between like what's intuition and what would be like, I guess a premonition would be the right word.
So something that you're seeing as a premonition happening in the future versus something that you are kind of manifesting and intuiting on your own.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, and that's actually an excellent question. I think a lot of people have it, especially those of us who are more intuitive. It's a hard differentiation. I remember one time I was driving down the highway with Susanna, if you remember her, and she was, and a motorcyclist flew by us going like, he had way over 100 miles an hour. And she looked at me, she said, body bag. And a few miles down the road, we saw him on the side of the road. Oh. And she's like, oh my God, did I do that? And I said, oh, no. You did not intuit or manifest that.
Yeah.
That was a premonition. You saw that. You responded. So it's a good example for those of you who have the same question, because a premonition is something that is instantaneous and you see it, right? You see it, it's there, and then it comes to fruition. Whereas intuition is something that is more of a process, or it's dedicated to something you want to see happen, or maybe
kind of like a roadmap. You're getting step by steps with it.
Correct.
Intuition. Premonition is like a quick insight about something. It's an
insight. So your intuition is going to be labeled with your it's going to be aligned with your manifestations. So if you're working on manifesting anything,
a sunny day.
I don't know. We're living in Florida, so that's the easy part.
Still not hurricane season's still not over, so we got to manifest sunny days,
right? So we could manifest the absence of Sarah turning into a hurricane. So,
but anyways,
as we look at that, and that's a little bit harder as we laugh about manifesting, but
okay,
as we look at what,
let's say I want to manifest, I need $1,000 by the end of this week.
Okay,
for something.
So the first thing I'm going to tell you is, when we say something like that, there's a challenge in our lives that allows that $1,000 to not be here.
Because I said I need.
Correct. And you may. That people do. So you're going to start to put your effort and your intuitive aspects into that manifestation. But intuiting is, what do I see? There's an intention there. What do I see? What am I looking for? What is in my future? What do I need to do? What's blocking me? Like, intuiting is kind of that inside awareness of, what do I need to do for the manifestation, right? So you're it's looking at, I don't want to find the right word.
The lights lighting up, like you have like something that feels good to go step towards, as opposed to something that feels bad to step towards.
Listen, we can manifest our nightmares. Everything that doesn't happen well in our life, we're manifesting that the same. We're just not as conscious of it as we are those things.
But at some point, wouldn't it feel better to go this way and we decided to go that way?
What do you mean?
Well, let's say if we're talking intuition. So now I see intuition would be, I have this vision of something. Mm-hmm. Not like an instant, I think it's going to rain today, I should bring my raincoat.
Right.
But I have a vision of something. There's one place that wants me to go this way, and it feels like a good way to go. But this way doesn't feel so good, but I'd rather go that way because it's easier, for instance.
So your ego got involved.
Aha. So, okay.
And it does. So when our ego gets involved, the ego is the persona of fear, and so where we have that, we alter the direction. When we alter the direction, we alter the outcome. Remember, your intuition is looking at where you are, where you wish to be, and what you see as yours. So my intuition allows me to see the second floor on my house, right? Very clearly,
yep.
Right? So you see where you are and but you can change that course at any time. both whether, from ego as well as from something else. So when you say your example, you've switched the course. So now your intuition is seeing something, but now the outcome is going to be different. So if we take that intuition back to a reader, and you sit down with a reader, and a reader says, I see you making $1,000 in the next week, and I see all this happening, but you go into work the next day and decide you don't want to work, so you go home and you just kind of hang out and read a book because you just don't feel like working because you heard you were going to get $1,000 anyway. Mm-hmm. So now you've changed the direction of the intuitive read.
You're not walking towards.
Because you're not walking. One is you're not walking towards, and two is you're not on the same trajectory that you were on when you asked the question. So whether it's your intuition or somebody else's intuition, when you change the trajectory of the path, let me give you a way for everybody to understand this. The bird flies up above. The snake is down in the grass. It's in the backyard. And the snake knows where it's been and where it is. But the bird flying up above sees where the snake has been, where it is, and to where it's going. So it sees, if it's on this trajectory, that it's headed towards its little home and all is well. But if all of a sudden that snake takes a right, then the eagle's intuitive projection fails, because now the snake is headed towards being somebody else's meal. So when you're looking at life, it's the same thing. As long as you stay on the trajectory when you ask the question, then your intuition will unfold as part of what we call a manifestation, and it is a manifestation. But when you change the trajectory, you change the path of the intuition.
So what if I had like a premonition about something, but I'm not sure if maybe it's just my intuition, my fear. Like let's say I'm fearful of something, all of a sudden, whatever, it could be anything.
That's a great question,
is that my intuition? Should I listen to that, or is that just fear?
Both.
Premonition, or,
I would say listen to both, and I'll tell you why.
That's harder when there's fear involved.
Because your fear is always going to set the stage of an illusion, right? Because fear is always illusion. So we're all going to have a hard time discerning, is it fear or is it premonition or intuition? What is it? What am I feeling? So people will say, I have this gut instinct, which is intuition, that, this isn't going to be good.
But yet, how do you know that that's just not somebody's insecure or feeling insecure?
You have to ask your own self that question. You have to. If it's a fear-based statement, or if it's something that you have doubt associated with, then ask yourself where that doubt is coming from, and is that doubt influencing? Because that fear will always look like it's right. If I could tell you how many people with anxiety are so sure-footed that this is exactly what it's going to be and what's going to happen, and they can manifest that, because we can manifest our fears just like we manifest our dreams, right? But when we are literally aware that that is part of our anxiety or our fear or our ego, then all of a sudden we can come back inside ourselves and separate and discern the two and start to say, okay, I can see where this might be my fear. Now, in our meditation or in our quiet time, we say, show me the difference.
Because there's a difference between your head.
Oh, yeah.
Is what is causing more of the fear. What you think is a premonition, and it's really just...
Well, your head does create
anxiety.
Right.
That's an illusion. Okay. Very good.
Because your intuition is very guttural. Right, it's the energy of the...
It's more quiet than it should be. We want it to be loud, right?
The intuition?
Hey!
Yo! How many times is it? And we ignore it, right?
Yes, that's my point. Why is it so... needs to speak up.
But even if it does, sometimes we ignore it. Right? Sometimes we miss the typo in the headline, the great big bold headline, but we catch it in the small print because the big and bold is what we overlook. So sometimes our intuition is screaming at us, and we're just overlooking it and keep on going, and we keep on going, we keep on going.
Yeah. What's a good way to, identify intuition? To
settle yourself. When you have fear involved or ego, like you just said, then you want to back up and say, okay, I know I have these fears. And like I said, find the quiet time to go back inside, and in that peace, see if you can feel behind your belly button, not up in your head,
Gotcha.
See if you can feel the image, feel its unraveling, feel its truth, right? If you can feel it behind your belly button without interference, you've got intuition there. But if it starts to falter or you have a hard time grasping that, your fear is pushing something along.
Ah, okay.
Does that help?
Good. Yes.
It is one way to get going, but when you start to really, you have to understand.
It feels better as opposed to feeling.
Yeah.
There's a solidness to it.
And it's fluid, whereas the other is more forced. It's more, it's you can feel the
reaction.
Yes, exactly. Now you can have an intuitive response to something that is not so pleasant about to happen, and so it becomes really important that you separate. Is that your fear saying that it could, or is it inside you, and you really can feel it and see it and sense it? It becomes very real from behind your belly button. It's a real important piece to know the difference of, especially when there's fear involved, because fear creates an illusion constantly, because fear is just an illusion, and so we really do have to disentangle the two. And I'll tell you, we briefly spoke about intuition and manifestation together as well, because intuition is a prediction. It's not a premonition. But in those predictions, we also are on that path in many ways of manifestation, whether it's us or others, because we are in alignment with, we're able to see. And so we unless you've really developed that gift and that skill. So as you look at that, ask yourself, what is the premonition about in your life? Why is it there? What's its purpose, right? If it's showing you intuitively that something is, that to be the snake again, that something disastrous is up ahead, pull back and ask, what is that about inside me? What is my fear of that? And why might it be?
I just thought of something else. It reminds me of when I broke my leg.
Mm-hmm.
So before that happened, I wasn't worried about anything. Nothing came into my head as a premonition or a fear or something.
Right.
But I was standing next to this guardrail, on Blackie at the time.
Yeah.
And I just shuddered. I just got this shudder.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's weird. Like, I'm not afraid of I'm going to fall off or something like that. But it was visceral, and it wasn't, that there was no thought before it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what it was about. I thought it was something maybe because it happened last week. I'm like, and it was like the next week or so or whenever is when that happened. Right in that spot.
Wow.
Yes. I'll never forget
So
that.
it was a premonition. Wow.
Yep. And now it reminds me of the difference between premonition, because I wasn't fearful of anything happening, and all of a sudden,
You just had it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a great example.
Yeah, it just came to mind.
Yeah. She had a horse, Blackie, who lived, 35 years?
37.
37 years. You won how many awards on him?
Many.
I know. So she would ride him all the time, and so she broke her leg on the last time.
Accident.
It was very fluke. And so the week before the accident, in the same place where the accident occurred, she had this premonition that she just described. Yes, that's pretty amazing.
And it surprised me because I was never fearful, about falling off or on him like I've been my whole life. So I was like, that was weird. Yeah. What was that about? Something happened a week before, but I didn't identify with it at that spot. So the whole thing to this day, it reminds me of that.
And that's a premonition.
Yeah.
It's not a manifestation, and it's not. It's intuitive.
Because it wasn't until after I looked back and then I remembered that I had that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I thought about it, I was worried, and then something happened.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I forgot about it after. It wasn't until after the incident that I remembered that I had that fearful thought. I was like, wow, that was weird.
That is.
Yeah.
So both, you understand, and we're kind of switching words, but I want to get really clear here. Intuition is the language that allows us to have those premonitions, to have the, what did I just say? I just lost my word. When we have the predictions, and to create the manifestations, both the fear-based and the love-based manifestations. And so the intuition, or the energy behind it all, is the language that connects our physical life to the beyond, I will say, to make it simple. And so when we do that, when we're connected, we want to make sure that where we're connected, that we're reading things right. Because if we're in our own state of fear, or our ego is very involved in what we're putting together, we're skewing the data we're collecting. And if you out there have had readings, you've had readings from some psychics who are really good and nail things for you, and others who kind of don't quite nail it as well. I'm a great one as a test gauge because the symbols are always very different, and they have to be able to step away from their cognitive mind, which in this case becomes an ego, and really let the symbols be what they're meant to be. Otherwise, you're altering the data, so to speak. So that was a great question. I mean, I think you really I think a lot of people want to know the difference between what they're feeling inside and how to, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We could talk for hours on this.
Oh, for sure. It's great.
Is that a good place for you?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Wonderful.
I want to thank all of you for being here. I hope you enjoyed our small audience of Hugs and Pocahontas. Hopefully the snoring didn't get in the way too much today. Sometimes it does. So thank you again for joining us. And until next time, may the magic be yours. Thank you so much for joining me, and please visit KristenBomas.com, where you can easily access all of my social circles.